Welcome to the next echelon of donuts. I don't know what that means. This is level 2. You graduated, guys. You made it. We're going to continue learning the basics of Blender, but getting just a little bit more advanced as well. It's beginner. Of course it's beginner, but, you know, progressing past the basics of the basics. So let's start with some sprinkles, because that is something everybody is dying. You know, I've been reading the hashtags and the trends of the global Twitter, and everyone's just going wild for sprinkles. No, they're not, but let's pretend they are. So we're going to add some sprinkles to our donut. Now, right now we've got things in our outliner here. We mentioned the outline at the top right hand corner, and they're all just kind of like thrown in here. We've got the archive, you know, which we created before we did the sculpting and everything, but it's all just kind of thrown in. And if we're going to start adding extra stuff like sprinkles and all this kind of stuff, it's going to get a little bit complicated. So let's just organize it a little bit. So I'm going to select my donut and my icing here, and I'm going to hit M for Mary, or move. It's probably a better one, move. And I'll give it a new collection, donut. There we go. So this little checkbox, by the way, in case you're curious, it'll hide it from both the viewport and the render. So it's like disabling something almost, but keeping it within your scene. And then I guess I'll have one for my plane. We'll call it the environment. So I just selected the plane, M, new collection, environment. And then this stuff, I can just rename this collection. I'll just call it cam and light, or lights, camera, act, I don't know, right? So something like that. Okay, whoa, what was that? Something just flashed on screen. Cool, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hide the environment, I'm gonna hide the donut, I'm gonna hide the scene, and we are gonna add in our very first singular sprinkle. So if you look at reference photos of sprinkles, let me pull it up here. Ignore my tabs here. I've just been watching some Theo Vaughn. Love that guy. So these are the sprinkles. And you'll notice that, I mean, for one, there's no like uniform, you know, Confederate standard of sprinkles. There's just like all sorts. There's some that are shiny, some that are dull, but they all seem to have a very similar shape. It's just like mostly straight, but with like slight little like wiggleness to them. Some of them are shiny, some of them are dull. But anyways, that's the kind of overall shape. So you could start with like a cylinder object to become your sprinkle. But they've got like a rounded edge. So instead what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a sphere. So we're going to go Shift A, Mesh, and we're going to go UV Sphere. Now by default, it's going to drop in this giant looking thing. And we'll set, yeah, first of all, the size of it. I'm going to go to like 1 millimeter, like really, really, really small. And then for the segments, the rings here, and the like basically the resolution of the sphere, that's quite important because this is going to be basically duplicated all over the donut, like basically like 1,000 times. So any resolution you've got here is just multiplied by however many sprinkles you have. Point is if you have a high-res sprinkle, one single sprinkle, for one, it's not even going to be visible in the render. Like it's so far away, it's not that detailed, but also it's just going to like drastically increase your render times. So I'm going to go with 12 segments and 6 rings. So very, very low res. And that's the radius, and there we go. If we bring in the donut, you can see how this looks in relation to it. In fact, I might as well move this over here. Like that, just one little sprinkle, the start of a sprinkle. And I'm just going front. Oh, hang on, front. Yeah, I should have put it along the front axis. That's probably easier to. It's like when I'm working with a scene, I like to like keep my camera like looking down the front angle, and then I have everything like positioned that way, so I don't get kind of like lost in which side view or front view, whatever. Anyway, so I'm just putting this on the left-hand side just for whatever. Just keep it here, right? Okay, so with my sprinkle here, oh gosh, focus it, number pad period. Okay, so we want it to look elongated. And so the way we're gonna do that is obviously edit mode with tab. And then while we're in edit mode, I'm going to grab the top half of my vertices here, and you'll notice that it won't select the other side. So make sure you're in X-ray mode when you do that. So select the whole top half, and then if we would like to move it, like it would just, yeah, it would be elongated, but it would also be like tapered. Like it basically, we want to like almost like create like a duplicate, like a middle part of it. So we're going to hit E to extrude, which you'll remember was the same hotkey that we used to make those like dripply bits of the icing. So it basically kind of like takes that and yeah, like moves it up, but then like adds a space between it. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so we got one like that. And what I can do, because I want to make like that end that is kind of like the reference, of course, it's, I mean, see if we can actually find a reference photo. Yeah, it's like, it's rounded, but it's not like as round as it is, it's not like a sphere end. It's just like, it's a hard cut. Basically, I watched video actually on how they do it, but it's like, they get like piping of like icing and they just do like long lines on like a baking tray and then they bake it and then it just creates like baked icing, and then I believe that's what it is. It's just like baked icing. Maybe these shiny manufactured ones, they may be different, but yeah, you can make them yourself. Apparently they're really easy to do. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this along the Z axis. So if I hit S and then Z, that's doing the effect that I want it to do. It's just sort of tapering it in a bit, like so. And then I'll do the same thing with the bottom one, S, Z, and there we go. Look at that. One singular sprinkle by itself. And while we're at it, we might as well go into shade smooth. And this is in object mode, of course. Make sure you're in object mode. Great. Now, with our donut here, we could, if we wanted to, we could, you know, grab it and like move it here and then duplicate it and then duplicate it, rotate it, and etc. But I'm pretty sure the tutorial would be 10 hours long, and I would be receiving death threats from people saying, how dare you lull me into a tutorial and then hit me with duplication. So there's a better way to do things. So there is, for something like this, you want to use basically what's called particle instances, which is where it's referencing one object and it's duplicating it over the top of the surface of another object. So that, we're going to do that. So I'm going to select my icing here, and there's the particle panel right here. And I'll move my little camera head out the way so that we don't block this view. Okay, so I just click, oh yeah, by the way, I don't know why there's not a like new button, like the like materials there's a new button or whatever, but then like particles there's no button for like new. I'm sure that's a bug, but anyway, it's the plus top right button there. Click plus and that'll add a new particle setting. And if you were to hit play, like spacebar, you would see that you get these like white dots appearing. So there are two types of particles. There are like emission types, which are like animated essentially, and then you've got hair, which are static. So now if I play, you can see nothing happens. So hair is the one we actually want, even though it doesn't look like it. For each one of these strands, we're going to reference that single sprinkle there. So you can do that by going to underneath render, right there, render. It's rendering as a path or a strand, which is great for hair for a character. But in our case, we want to instead render as an object. And then the object that we're going to reference, this instant object, we're going to click this little eyedropper here. And the eyedropper allows you to just basically click any object in your scene. And there we go. Look at that. We have little single sprinkles over our donut. So the size of them is defined by this size right here. So this is really how you're going to decide. Got a bird outside my window. I'm not sure if you can hear that. It's going to decide how, yeah, like really, there's no uniform sprinkle either. Like some are like really like thin and like almost like, yeah, like little hair particles, something like they're so thin. And then others just like thick and chunky. So really like make the sprinkle that you feel best suits your needs. Okay, so that's the scale. And then there's another setting here, scale randomness, which I normally would use because, by the way, this settings, like this particle settings and what I'm doing here, this is how you make like rocks across a landscape. You just like use this and go, and for this case, scale randomness is perfect because then you got rocks of different sizes. But it's also, it's not like shrinking them like just along one axis. It's also like it's scaling them. So sprinkles aren't they're all like the same thickness, essentially. So this setting actually doesn't work for us. A little bit, but anyway. The main setting I know you're all thinking right now is like they're all facing the same direction, so that's not good. So we need to change the rotation, and for rotation, you need to use advanced settings. Check the box. I don't know, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, it shouldn't have even just be an advanced setting, because I've always used advanced settings because you always need rotation. So anyway, check advanced, and then under rotation, we're going to check that box, click the little drop down, and orientation axes, we want to use normal. And it'll still be facing a direction, but it'll be a different direction. And you might think randomize is the one that we need right there. But randomize will, it'll rotate, but it'll rotate them on a different axis to the point that they're like standing up on top of each other, like facing upwards, which isn't right. What we want is this one, randomize phase. So when I do that, they're staying along like their same rotation, but it's like rotating along that axis, not the other axis. Anyways, there we go. Though having said that, I will use a little bit of random amount here because sprinkles, like they land on top of melted icing, right? And some of them will land like top on like that, and they'll like maintain a little bit of this rotation. So they won't be like crazy, it won't be like that, but they will have like a little bit of like tilt to them, essentially. Great. So all well and good so far. One thing to note though is if we just hide the underlying donut, if we go underneath, you will see that we have sprinkles underneath our icing as well as on top. So this is, you know, in edit mode, you can see it's one solid object. And right now, Blender doesn't know that the sprinkles are supposed to go just on the top. So it's just placing them everywhere. So what we want to do is we want to define which parts are going to have the sprinkles, and we're going to do that in weight paint mode. So with our icing selected, object, weight paint mode. Or by the way, if you want a hotkey, Control Tab will bring up a pie menu with all of those options up there. So that's kind of handy. So weight paint mode. Now when you do this, it'll go blue. And essentially what you're looking at is, you know, like, what was the name of that movie with the aliens? Aliens vs. Predator? The one with the Predator. And it's like heat vision mode. That's what you're looking at. So blue means 0 weight. Now if I just click anywhere on here, you'll see you get like heat paint map. Red means 1, blue means 0, and then these values in between are obviously values in between. So the red values is where the sprinkles are going to appear. So if you try painting, it's going to be very slow, and that's because our particles are turned on. So if we just click that little monitor thing there, it'll just disable it from the viewport. So now when we draw, it's going to be a lot faster. Okay, so the same hotkey, by the way, as sculpting, F will change the size of your brush. And again, if you want to bring up that tool setting thing here, which probably should be on by default, but for whatever reason it's not, these are like the weight and the strength of your brush. Like you could go like a low strength and just kind of paint. But anyway, default settings are fine, and I'm just going to paint like along the top here. Like so. And I just want to make sure that there is, that's weird. Why aren't I allowed to paint right there? Oh, strength. Oh, I always confuse those two. Strength, full strength, but paint a weight of 1. There we go. Yeah, so I want to make sure that there are parts of it that, like especially down here, the sprinkles would obviously fall off if it was like on an angle too extreme. So I just want to make sure it's just on the top. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go into too much detail for a beginner's tutorial, but you know, I want the result to look good. And I've seen, you know, the past 3 years of people on Twitter adding me into their rendered result that they finished, and I had like all these notes. I'm like, you should fix this. This is too uniform. This is, you know, and it's like, well, I should have put that in the tutorial, shouldn't I? If everybody's got the same problems, it means it's my fault from the tutorial. So anyway, I'm just trying to make it look nice. Anyway. That's fine, right? I'm just yabbering. So Control Tab, and then I'm going to go back to object mode. So bring back our sprinkles, and then the way that we tell the particle system to use that weight paint is by right down here underneath vertex groups. So you can choose a whole bunch of different properties that'll be controlled by that, but the one we're looking for is density, and it's group. By the way, if you ever mess up your like your weight paint, or for whatever reason you can't find it, it's here, vertex groups. So whenever you start painting, it'll create a new vertex group and it'll be right here. But if you ever mess up, you can just come to here and then click that little minus button. That'll delete that, and then you can click plus and you can add a new one. Yeah. Anyways, there you go. So we now have it on top of the icing where it should be. Hooray. We got too many sprinkles, you know. We're going to get to that in the following parts. The sprinkle step, it's a little advanced. It's a little, it's not advanced, it's a little involved. So this is going to be split up over a couple of videos. So in the next part, we will be adding some more variations to our sprinkles, some different colors and different things like that. So go ahead, click here to watch that next video, and I will see you there.